There you go. 4-punch, 5-punch, 6-punch combination. Body shot, bang, 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 bang.
Telling him not to counterpunch.
Boom! Will Rackman get up?
Iron is going through all the instructions. This is for the championship of the world. I expect a tough, clean fight. Protect yourself at all times. Any questions from the challenger?
Welcome back, fight fans. Today, I'm joined by my own twin brother, Kevin Foose, a former amateur boxer. He boxed alongside with me at West Virginia University, as well as made an attempt for the 2016 Olympics. How are you doing today, Kevin? Cool. Were you able to catch any of these fights this past weekend?
Joshua fight, and that kind of caught me by surprise. But yes, I got to watch a few exciting fights this week.
Cool. Hey, everyone, if you've been living under a rock for the past couple of weeks, Anthony Joshua, number 2 heavyweight, sparked out the beast from the UFC, former UFC superstar, now current PFL fighter, Francis Ngannou, in the second round of their early Friday morning matchup. Ngannou had impressed the combat world when taking on Tyson Fury, and they went the distance in Francis Ngannou's pro boxing debut all the way back in October. He even caught Tyson Fury in the third round with a good left hook, putting Fury down on the mat. Joshua knocked Ngannou down in the first round, but the second knockdown in the second, Ngannou basically walked into a right hand, and Ngannou was clearly already defeated basically when he stood up. That knockout finish for Joshua clearly boosts Anthony Joshua's confidence, a man who was known to have an impenetrable chin in the UFC, clearly referring to Francis Ngannou, was easily crumbled by Anthony Joshua. This was a sideshow boxing match, in my personal opinion, since, again, it was Ngannou's second professional match against another former world champion in Anthony Joshua. I actually do really like Ngannou. The whole story background, I think, is quite remarkable. The fact that the dude is where he's at and getting paid what he's getting paid is literally a once-in-a-lifetime story. Currently, he is 37 years old, so I'm not entirely sure we'll see too much more of him. I know Carl Froch the other day, I mean, that guy, has a lot of opinions, basically said that Ngannou probably needs to stay away from boxing. But that knockout was pretty tough, and we all know, like George Foreman, he fought on until he was 48, and Bernard Hopkins, the executioner turned alien, he fought on until he was 51. Mind you, those guys are boxing purists, and they're also anomalies. But if Ngannou did well here, I was thinking, hey, why not take on Wilder? But clearly, from all the highlight replays and the memes being made, I don't want that at all for him. What were you surprised by, Kev?
I honestly, I was kind of surprised and shocked that Anthony Joshua was able to shut him down within 5 minutes. If you think of the monetary value that Joshua had made from that 5-minute fight, he got paid $50 million for this, and it literally went 5 minutes. And one of those minutes, he was sitting down, resting for his break between round 1 and 2. So a very big return in investment for him. I just didn't expect him to, and I think a lot of people would agree with me, they didn't expect Anthony Joshua to come into this fight with the intent, with that in mind of him actually knocking him out. I mean, if the knockout was there, he probably would take it. Obviously, he did. I don't think anyone expected him to do it so quickly, though. I know a lot of people, at least that I've talked to about it, were expecting Joshua to win via a decision. But it kind of did show that the skill level that Ngannou kind of put himself in the ring against, it's just too big of a gap. If he had started when he was younger and stuck with it and became a boxing purist like all these other professionals have, he probably would be able to hold himself high within the heavyweight rankings of boxing. But it's just like you said, he's 37. He can fight probably some of the lower tier guys and do just as well. But I mean, I tip my hat off to him. Like you said, his background of coming of age, growing up, trying to, make a living for himself is one of admiration. It's like the American dream. It's like, I know a lot of people that probably couldn't even fathom being in his situation when he was trying to make it, would like to see him with more level competition. But I mean, we'll wait to see. He has a contract with PFL, and his schedule is about to be kind of busy, I guess, with that. So, but other than that, yeah, it kind of caught me by surprise that Joshua was able to finish it. The skill alone that he displayed, the beautiful work with the jab and the setting up, it was all what you would expect from a former heavyweight champion.
Yeah, Anthony Joshua is clearly, a seasoned professional, former Olympian for the UK team. I was surprised, I guess, by the quickness of the knockout. I was talking with some people, and I was like, you know what? I think he actually might be able to hold his own with Joshua, at least go further into the deeper end. But wow, yeah, Anthony Joshua, hey, you shut me up. But kudos to Ngannou. Like I said earlier, his story, his migration story of how he came to Europe and then came to the US is quite remarkable. But yeah, I did appreciate seeing Joshua practice. He didn't take him necessarily lightly. You could tell he was practicing the skill set that he has been learning and training with under Ben Davidson. A lot of the timing, making sure he's using his jab, touching upstairs, downstairs, like you said. But man, yeah, that was a quick fight. Leaving, I guess, much more to be desired. However, Ngannou clearly wasn't over his head. As for Anthony Joshua, though, this now 4 wins have now followed. He outpointed Jeremy Franklin over 12 rounds last April at London's The O2 Arena. He defeated Robert Helenius, who was a late replacement for Dillian White, last August on the 12th. And then Joshua also defeated Aldo Wallin in 5 rounds last December 23rd in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Since Wilder took that loss to Joseph Parker previously in Riyadh, the Ngannou versus Joshua match was made. And now we wait for Usyk and Fury on May 18th, just 2 months away. From the current setup, who would you like to see Anthony Joshua take on next, Kev?
Oh, I don't care, to be honest with you. He could take on anybody. The skill level he had displayed and the skill level, he's a different animal than what we've seen when he first became heavyweight champion, when he first got into the pro ranks, right? From the amateur days. I remember it was when he was, it was right before he had taken his first loss against Ruiz. And you can tell when he saw that he had someone hurt, smelt blood in the water, as they say, he would kind of be jumpy and jump on the opportunity to try to get them out of there quickly, correct? Now it's a different story. In these last few fights, you see that he's a more subtle. He doesn't rush. He takes a very tactical approach to how he figures out that you're hurt, and then he'll figure out a way to put you out without having to risk anything, correct? With the Ruiz, when he had knocked Ruiz down in their first bout, and then he sensed that he had Ruiz, he was going to close it early, and Ruiz was able to clip him with a hook, and then you could see his equilibrium was off after that. I remember when he got clipped on top of the body, just kind of shook.
That was back when.
Like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're fine. That was just way back when, and I'm thinking about the past two U6 fights, and clearly how I think those 2 fights were mentally really damaging.
Yes. There was no killer instinct.
But to see
no killer instinct in those fights.
Well, I think he was just getting outclassed, and which is not a fault of his own. Usyk is, such an intelligent Ukrainian southpaw, and his just boxing skills are of the upper echelon.
So fighter, yes. But it is nice to see this Joshua like that. He didn't come in this fight not taking it serious. He was 100% focused. Even when he knocked Ngannou out, he walked. I remember I was watching him, his demeanor, and he just walked straight back to the corner, looked at somebody, just nodded at them, but he didn't really acknowledge the fact that I knocked this guy out. And he even said in the post-fight interview, he's on to the next. He's not going to dwell on this. So, he's in a good place mentally, which is awesome for the sport and for him.
Beyond the payday, this fight, he was in a boxing ring, so it should have gone his way, right?
Correct.
I think there was a little bit more of a risk for him if he were to have lost, and it really would be like, hey, man, your best days are behind you. You should probably retire. You lost to an MMA fighter. Even regardless if Francis Ngannou, it was a former striker or is a striker, right? That's what his skill set is. Right. I think that would have been the final, call for Joshua. But I do like seeing the new confidence in him. I think those previous wins ex-naying this Francis Ngannou win. I think that knockout really just boosts his confidence, but the past previous wins are really helping him in his psyche, especially with Ben Davison. I don't know what type of voodoo magic tricks they're doing over there in camp, but clearly Joshua, I'm excited to see who he gets next. I'm always curious to see if he wants to give the opportunity to Joseph Parker for a rematch, because we all know now he's kind of next in line, I think, for Fury and Usyk when they meet in May 18th. Fury has not spared any words for Anthony Joshua, basically saying, hey, it's kind of BS why we haven't fought yet. It's all politics and business. There is no reason why we basically couldn't sell out No2 Arena in the UK, right? Because those two are two huge personalities. And obviously the heavyweight is the king. The heavyweight division is the king division of all boxing divisions. So hopefully, though, we get to see Joshua get right back into the ring to avoid any ring rust. I know I just previously said Joseph Parker, but the other main fight, I guess you would say, that drew a lot of boxing attention was Joseph Parker versus Zhang Zhilei. Zhang, 41, of China, couldn't pull off the win, unfortunately, against his New Zealand opponent, Joshua Parker. He knocked Parker down twice, once in the third and again in the eighth, but didn't jump on either opportunity. I have two reasons for this, right? One, he's 41. And to have the stamina at that age to basically jump on an injured opponent, it's a lot easier said than done. Even myself, if I'm still possibly sparring with any of the younger guys at the gym that I attend, I'm not going in there to try to hurt anyone because it's just simply sparring. But even if I did see someone take a side step, staggered step, and I want to jump on that opportunity, I can't guarantee, even at my age, and I'm much younger than Zhang, that I have the full gas tank in order to do so, right? So that is one. And then two, he also came in at 291 pounds, which I believe is the heaviest that he's ever come in for a fight. Coupled together, Zhang showed, I think, that maybe he's slowing down. Age and weight are factors, both factors. Joseph Parker did show a lot of boxing IQ, making you stick to the basics. He used a lot of movements, feints, and tried to avoid that cannon of a left hand that Zhang holds. And I know I saw he threw a quick burst of combinations and also sticking towards the end of the fight, very simple, like 2-punch combos. I just have to say, for the record, it's great to see Joseph Parker coming back like this since his loss to Joe Joyce in 2022. He's earned 11 wins out of his past 12 outings, which since 2022, 2 years ago, dude, that's great. For a heavyweight to stay that busy, that's awesome. And he just seems to age like a nice fine wine. Each win, he just keeps getting better and better. And he's Big Zhang, as much of a fan of him. I'm not saying that, he's like a quick burst of flames and now he's fizzled out. I'd like to see him get back in the ring. But I just appreciate Joseph Parker's tenacity because I think a lot of people wrote him off after the Joe Joyce loss. How about you, Kevin? What do you think about Joseph Parker's performance?
Look, with the basics, he fought the bigger man, especially a scary big bang, bang you. That's literally what he was saying during his the advertisements for this fight, right? He's I love him. The fight was phenomenal. Parker did enough. He stuck with the basics. He did enough to edge out the fight. I'm not upset with the majority decision. He came back from 2 knockdowns, which is that's pretty awesome to see. Especially when I'm sorry, how do you pronounce it? Zhang?
Zhang.
Yes, Zhang. With Zhang, with those 2 knockdowns, we all know he's a great counterpuncher. Like he just waits for the opening. He'll strike. It's so weird to see a big guy like that do that. But he just didn't have the energy, I think, in the tank to do it, especially coming in so heavy, especially in a boxing ring. So it's such a endurance sport. The only critique I have with Joseph Parker is after he would throw like even the basics of a 1-2 combination, like a 2-punch combo, you gotta move your head or get off the line, man. Because I was watching a lot of his combinations he would throw from the body to the head and vice versa. After he threw, he would just stand in the pocket. Like, man, you got to move your head because if, like I said, Zhang, great counterpuncher. He wanted to come right back, right down the pipe, and that who knows how many other knockdowns he would have had if he afforded himself the opportunity to actually throw back after getting hit with so many basic combinations there. I know Zhang has a contractual rematch clause in this, and I believe he wants to activate it immediately. I know Joe Joyce has voiced out saying that he wants a piece of Joseph Parker after Joseph Parker had won that fight. But if you ask me, I think Joe Joyce needs to really worry about like, hey, you need to redeem yourself against Jong before you try to shoot your shot at Joseph Parker again. That's in the Anthony Joshua. So these two guys, and they fought before, right? And Anthony Joshua beat Parker. These two guys were kind of written off after, their losses. But it's just happy to see them both making a blazing redemption from those. So the heavyweight division, it's been, I know a couple of years ago, people complained that it's been kind of stagnant, like no exciting boxers from like back in the day were in there. But like these two guys, they could be the life to give it, like to revamp it up, right? Especially because now you had guys like Ngannou trying to come over from MMA into the sport and try to breathe fire to it. So it's nice to see these two guys make a redemption.
Yeah, I think these two, Anthony Joshua specifically and Joseph Parker, just go to show that, the losses column doesn't make or completely break you. Mind you, again, the sport of boxing is a red light district sport, so it can be very unforgiving once you take an L. But the fact, they are brand names, they're names that, they draw attention. So the fact that, like you said, I think it's a late comeback tour or a comeback tour for both of these heavyweights. I'm so sorry, I'm getting tripped up on my words, but I do appreciate it, especially I think just Parker, because Parker just seems like a cool dude. I'd like to bro out with him. But this win does put Parker back in line to challenge for his old WBO title, which is awesome, which is currently held by Alexander Usyk. So he's going to have to wait for the May 18th fight to determine who he's going to be facing, whether that's Usyk if he wins or Tyson Fury if he wins. But I don't think we mentioned this earlier. Tyson Fury and Usyk, they actually have a rematch clause. So there's basically going to be two fights back to back. Once they fight May 18th, regardless of the winner, they're going to activate it. Then again, maybe things change. This is boxing after all. But then the next fight would take place contractually, it seemed like in October. So both Joseph Parker and Anthony Joshua seem like they're going to be kind of sitting around at least until October. So maybe those two, like we just mentioned, maybe those two kind of get it on in lieu. So of just waiting around. That way there's no ring rust buildup, right? Like that would be the ideal situation. But hey, it's still to be seen as the heavyweight division unfolds. Maybe there'll be a new guy who kind of comes into the scene, which would just make, again, for an exciting matchup. And still, well, maybe we'll see. Maybe Wilder pops back in to the mix. Outside of these two, or this one card and those two matches, we have some other fight announcements that were made recently. I'll start, I guess, with the biggest one that drew a lot of headlines is Canelo Alvarez. Canelo has decided not to face David Benavidez, depending on who you ask, and I know this is very contentious, but has chosen to face fellow Mexican Jaime Munguia. There was a back and forth with the Canelo camp. At one point, it was Munguia and Edgar Berlanga, 2-fight deal with PBC, and then it was all focused on Jermall Charlo as an opponent. However, with the Jermall Charlo listless performance, the Jermall Charlo fight just kind of didn't really seem to make sense. Now we have a Mexican face-off, which obviously will be a big night, taking place in May. This matchup reminds me of when Canelo fought Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., except I'd like to think that Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Isn't as skilled as Munguia. Munguia is now being trained by Freddie Roach. And in his past fight, when the most recent fight that he had, where he basically took out John Ryder in the 9th round, I mean, everyone was like, yo, Canelo, take a look at this. He's not going to a decision. He took the dude out. But to John Ryder, who's now retired, to his credit, getting in the ring after fighting Canelo Alvarez, I think a little bit of you is not the same, right? He did take a lot of abuse in that fight. So what are your thoughts on this one, Kevin?
I guess that's going to do big buys, especially for the home country of Mexico. I'm not really thrilled by it. I would have preferred the Benavides fight, but I mean, no offense to Munguia. This is me personally. I believe he has an inflated resume. I mean, his two big wins, John Ryder and him beating John Ryder, and then Derevyanchenko. Those are two credible wins that I can believe, but I can't really name anybody else on his resume. But he does have a forward-style approach. I know he was kind of, what they use the term, a weight bully when he fought at 154. I remember watching some of his fights at that weight class, and the sheer size of him over some of his opponents. I was like, holy crap. I was like, this should be illegal. But I mean, they signed the contract with his. It should make an exciting fight. But it should be honestly make him an easier target for Canelo, unless Freddie Roach has something up his sleeves where he's going to make Munguia a beautiful defensive counter puncher. But I don't see him being able to do too much before their bout coming up. So for Munguia, this might be one of those fights where he's got to bite down on that mouthpiece, and he's just got to be swinging for the hills. But it financially, he should do big pay-per-view buys. But like you said, I'd rather preferred him fight Benavides, the Mexican monster himself. But maybe in the near future, he's going to end up fighting him. We don't know. We don't know what's in the mind of Canelo. I do give credit where credit is due. He is the champion, and he's been a champion for a while now. He's probably one of the most active champions that we've had in the past 2 years. You can look at his resume from when he jumped up to 168. His first fight, back in 2018 with Rocky Fielding. And then I think all of them have been at 168 except for his one fight against Dimitri Bivol back in 2022. But he's fought almost everybody you can think of, right? Danny Jacobs, Callum Smith, Billy Saunders, Caleb Plant. I keep saying me personally that he's everyone's saying that he's ducking Benavides, but the word ducking's always thrown around, but if he's the last guy you got to get through, why not? You know what I mean? Like, what's preventing this? I don't know. I don't understand what prevented him from picking Benavides, but that's yet to be seen.
I'm afraid there might be some weird marination, but I don't think that's the case because Canelo doesn't seem like he's the marinating type. And this is also just because he takes like a lot of risks with fight, like for example the Austin Trout fight. I don't think he needed to do the Eris Landalore fight, which I know that's a contentious fight of like who actually should have earned that decision. I don't want to say marinate, but it just Canelo Munguia is an easy. I would say, in the words of Canelo, because when he was practicing his English, when he called out, or not called out, but when what's his name crashed. Yeah, he was like payday. I was like, this is a payday. This is great for him, for the Mexican culture, for the people. I know this is going to be a really big show. Canelo is the face of boxing, right? And so I guess this is a good opportunity for Munguia. Hopefully he doesn't blow it. Hopefully it's a much better performance than the last Charlo fight. That's at least my hope, because in the event that maybe he does slip a little bit, or looks like he's aged just a little bit, right? Then maybe the Benavides is going to fight might actually happen. Right, at least maybe through he's playing us, like he's like showing us that he's slipping a little bit, but really not. But that's just my own random irrational thought, I suppose. I can't say I'm too excited for this matchup, but it is better than the route he could have gone. Like for example, like Edgar Berlanga could have been a chosen opponent, and I'm glad that wasn't the case, because Edgar Berlanga does not deserve to get in the ring with Canelo, in my humble opinion. But I'm excited to see Canelo back. I think any Canelo fighting is just pretty much a holiday in itself. So I'm super excited.
I guess
what's that?
The name that you mentioned, Edgar Berlanga. He, I don't know if it's official, or I don't think it's official or anything. But some people have been speculating that maybe Danny Jacobs and him could have a potential showdown. I don't know the last time I've heard Danny Jacobs' name ever pop up.
Right,
but he is not retired yet, and that might be a good. Danny Jacob would be, I hate to use the word on such a guy that I admire, but a good gatekeeper to see if Edgar Berlanga is like the real deal. Because I know he's had issues in the past, like with promotion and everything. But I don't believe he's with Top Rank anymore. Is it? Or I can't remember. I've kind of lost a following on how, like, his progression in the sport. But that would actually be a pretty good fight if, say, Danny Jacobs versus Edgar Berlanga.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. That's kind of... He's already 37 to my understanding, so he's a little bit on the back end, right? So I don't know if I really like this for him, but he is the miracle man. Like, he did have spinal cancer at one point. I know that was a big hype up, or the lead up to the GGG fight, and so it was just like, dude, your health really is like at risk. So maybe obviously he's a veteran, so he has a lot left he has a lot to teach a young Edgar Berlanga. So if that's added to the card, then that's just a benefit. If it's were to be off on its own, like let's say those two are headlining the card, then I probably wouldn't tune in. But hey, all right, that's cool. I appreciate now learning that. But I guess to shift gears just a little bit, there was a possible fight announced, a potential fight during the Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou event. Now this is Manny Pacquiao's possible return to fight Conor Benn. Pacquiao actually hasn't fought professionally since August of 21st of 2021. His last fight came when he was already nearing 43 years old. That was after a 2-year layoff. He ended up losing the decision to Ordinas Ugas, and then he lost his WBA belt in the process. Now Conor Benn, right, and Pacquiao, they faced off after the Joshua and Ngannou weigh-in. Conor Benn says the world wants it. I and probably everyone else disagree with that statement. But let me ask you, Kevin, what do you think about this?
It's funny how we're talking about like Danny. Speculation maybe Danny Jacobs will fight Edgar Berlanga at 37. Manny Pacquiao 45. Now this man is a 8-time division world champion in 8 different weight classes. The guy is going down already. He did enough. He doesn't need to do anything else to be a boxing legend. He is up there with the boxing god. Oh my God, I do not want to see this fight. And like Conor Benn, I don't know what he's talking about. People want to see this. Maybe you and your dad want to see this, but nobody wants to see Manny Pacquiao. At least I don't. I mean, there are some fanboys out there that are hardcore. Man, they'll probably want to see Manny Pacquiao fight till he's 100 years old. But there has to be a point when you know that you have to hang the gloves up. When he lost to Ugas, and then the next day, he's in high spirits and everything, but he looked beat. He looked torn and worn. And then he fought Ugas, a guy that's like, Cuban boxing star. Doesn't really fight like a Cuban, like the style at least. Kind of has that. He's gonna like stand in the pocket with you and just bang. But look what he did to Manny Pacquiao. And I was so excited when that fight happened over Pacquiao and Earl Spence, because look what Earl Spence did to Ugas. Look what he did to all his previous opponents before he fought Terrence Crawford. The guy just like at his age now, 45, and I know he lost his appeal a while ago now to try to compete at the Olympics because he always wanted to get a gold medal for his country. I mean, at some point you just kind of know when to hang it up, and I know everyone hates to see these boxing legends like when they retire. It's like, oh man, I reminisce when I watched him box, like when he was still active. And near 2014 when I forget what year was it when devastation when Marquez knocked him out. That was hard.
That was like 2012.
Yes, but it's like still it was still exciting to see him watching those HBO 24/7 all access, like all those episodes of his build up fights. Those were phenomenal, but you just got to know when to call it. I mean, the boxing legend. He can be an advisor. I know his son's boxing now. Maybe advise your son. I know he said he wanted to be Inouye's like advisor at one point. Like he maybe just needs to find a different route in boxing to stay active in it. But for him to compete, I don't think it'd be a good idea, especially with Conor Benn, a guy that failed 2 voluntary drug tests back in March of 23. And before that, it makes you start speculating in combat sports alone how dangerous it is. We've seen people die in this sport, right? So for him to want to fight a boxing legend, and that he failed 2 drug tests, that I know is being appealed right now. But when you watch him, some of his knockouts, they're just like there's like intent to injure. Like when he knocked out Chris Algieri, Conor Benn, that was I was just like, what's going on? Like, Chris Algieri, he fought Manny Pacquiao. I mean, Manny Pacquiao kind of beat him convincingly, but
right.
But when he
convincingly, he beat him up.
I remember when the coach said, "Oh, I'm going to let the dog out." When he's talking about Chris Algieri there, and then Pacquiao just knocks him down. But tough guy though, right? When he fought Provodnikov, and right, is that how you pronounce his name, Provodnikov? Yes,
yeah,
and he gave him that sweltering baseball of an eye, but he still ended up winning. He bit down on that mouthpiece and pulled out the win. The face and the end up facing Manny Pacquiao. But when Conor Benn, I said, knocked him out, that was scary. He literally went limp and just fell. So I don't want to see Pacquiao. I'm not saying that he couldn't handle his own, but What's the risk? What else do you have to prove to us?
Well, I think to go back, I think Provodnikov without Chris Algieri was after the Manny Pacquiao fight.
Okay.
I think
No, I believe it was before because of the HBO 24. That was like the thing that they.
Oh wait, no, you're right. I was watching a rematch of it one night in Pittsburgh and was like, timeline in my mind didn't make sense. Okay, now I just probably think regarding this fight, it's maybe a money grab by Pacquiao.
Oh, could be.
The guy has a political career and he has a pretty lavish lifestyle. I'm pretty sure he's probably much better with his money compared to the previous Manny Pacquiao. Previous Manny Pacquiao as in before he met Jinky and turned his life to God and was gambling and drinking.
I was enjoying the lavish
and blowing through a bunch of enjoying the high life of like being a world champion. I'm pretty sure he's better with his money now, right? But part of me thinks this might be part of a money grab, or maybe he just has that natural fighter itch to get back into the ring competitively. Conor Benn might be a good litmus test, especially considering that he's already been suspended at some point for doping. So if he's not on, what he was tested for was clomiphene, or what he tested positive for was clomiphene. Maybe Pacquiao is like, hey, if you're not on that drug, then I have a pretty good chance, right? But I'd really rather just stay retired, dude. Let us remember you as you once were. Kind of like, it just reminds me a little bit of Roy Jones Jr. Coming back after, we all reminisce on his highlights, but towards the back end of his career, I was like, dog, like Wolf, like our Kevin and I know a guy personally named, our boy Eric Watkins, who now promotes fights out of Morgantown, West Virginia. And I remember asking him, hey, what was it like fighting Roy Jones Jr.? He said Roy Jones Jr., has a rock for a fist. And I've met Roy Jones Jr. personally here in North Carolina at one local fight. And I believe it. I shook his hand. I was like, oh, bro, this is like a bear claw. But of course, like when you think of the back end of the career, I was like, ooh, you could have retired with such a pristine, I guess not necessarily record, but a better pristine memory instead of like maybe possibly tarnishing your legacy. But hey, to each their own. I will tune into that fight, maybe reluctantly. But there is one more fight that I did want to look at. And it regards someone that we've already previously mentioned, but he's now bumping up to 175 pounds, at least for this one fight. David Benavidez. He is actually making his return this June here in a couple months, but not as a super middleweight. He's moving up to the light heavyweight division to face Alexander Vazdik, the Ukrainian boxer who was once a stablemate of Vasily Lomachenko and Alexander Usyk. Benavidez has had two great outings, decision and KO planned in March of 2023, and then stopping Demetrius Andrade in their bout he stopped him, in the 6th round? While we're all hoping the Canelo announcement would have came, unfortunately it didn't. This bout actually puts the winner as a challenger to the winner between Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev, which will also take place, I guess, in June or this summer. So, Kev, you tell me, what are your thoughts? Because I remember Alexander retiring back in 2020. That was 8 months after suffering a stoppage loss to Artur Beterbiev, the nail versus Beterbiev when he was still fighting out of Canada. But since he returned in February 2023. He's won 3 bouts. Vazdik also served as a sparring partner for Canelo Alvarez during Alvarez's camp for Dmitry Bivol. So I'm kind of curious, Kev, like, what are your thoughts? Like, I know you're a fan of Vazdik.
Oh, I'm a huge fan. I don't think people give this guy his due credit. I mean, like you said, the sport of boxing's it's like the red light district, right? Yeah, big paydays, just like you make it or break it in the sport. And but you have to be able to advertise yourself. And you see it with a lot of these Eastern European guys. It's hard for them. Look at Better Biev. People know of his name because he's known as he's just a knockout artist, right? He's 20-0 with 20 knockouts. Like everyone, he has 100. There's only one other person I believe with 100% knockout rating right now, and that's I believe Virgil Ortiz. I believe.
Oh, really?
I believe so.
Wow.
But it's hard to no one, at least in American side of boxing, they're like, they've they hear these names. I remember when Inoue, you and me know who Inoue was, but there were people I would talk to and they're like, who's that? Like, what do you mean? It's funny how everyone has the nickname the Monster. Inoue would walk out with the Godzilla theme song playing. But Alexander Vosdik, yeah, big. I'm a huge fan. There was a guy that we sparred. You and me have sparred. Tommy Karpency. It was actually he was a late replacement for Vosdik because his original opponent had to pull out for I forget what reason. And he gave Vosdik a little trouble because he came in. He's a southpaw, slippery. He was a world title contender. I mean, he did hold a belt. He beat Bad Chad Dawson to get a belt. I just can't remember what the belt title was, but I feel proud to say that I moved with a title contender. But Vosdik was eventually able to figure him out and ended it, I believe, within 6 rounds. And if you go to his box rec, he has 16 knockouts. He's had 21 fights, and 16 of them were knockouts. 1 loss to Benavides, which, again, like I said, I watched that live that night, and not in person, but on TV on Top Rank. And I was kind of shocked at the fact that there wasn't more advertisement for it. But, again, 2 Eastern European guys, Ukrainian and Russian, fighting for 2, I believe, or just 1, teach him his ways. And Vosdik, fun fact, was up by 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards that fight before Beterbiev got the better of him and was able to get a TKO in the 10th round. He's if you're trying to learn the sport of boxing, this is the guy that you want to watch. Footwork is phenomenal, moves laterally perfectly, good basics of the defense, good straight punches and hooks, sets up combinations beautifully. I mean, he was part of the golden age of Ukrainian boxing. He was Alexander Usyk's and Vasily Lomachenko's teammates during their Olympic run. Bronze medals in 2012 Olympics, 3-time Ukrainian national champion. Like, I wish this guy would get more due credit, but I think a lot of people just hear Benavidez and they're like, oh, this is just another guy that they're going to feed him to. But I would like to see Vosdik. I'm a huge underdog guy, and I'd love to see him win. But I don't know how true it is that Benavidez cuts down from like 200 pounds to 168. So I mean, he should make weight comfortably, and I think it should be an interesting fight. I think my gut's telling me Benavidez will win by unanimous decision because I believe Vosdik will pull through. I mean, especially after he went in the ring with Benavidez. I don't know if Benavidez hits as hard as him, but I see a unanimous decision by Benavidez. But I'd love for Vosdik to win. Maybe that would itch Canelo into, like, say Vosdik wins and then that itches him, Canelo, to be like, hey, Benavidez, come over here.
Maybe. I mean, that's a good idea. I like Vosdik. I do remember watching him fight Beterbiev, and I actually really was enthralled by that fight. Just the amount of punches that they were landing, and I'm like, bro, like, there's only so much they can take. But Vosdik did sustain a lot of damage from that fight. But mind you, Beterbiev, and while you're speaking, I kind of took my phone real quick to Google Virgil Ortiz, and I didn't realize Virgil Ortiz also had a 100% knockout rate, which is insane to me. But the thing right now in this moment, like, since we've been talking, the amount of older gentlemen that we've talked about, Danny Jacobs, Vosdik, Zhang, Francis Ngannou, right? Like, we got these guys in their upper 30s on the back end of their careers, I suppose, or making a resurgence in their careers. I want to talk about the Virgil Ortizes, and I know Tim Zoo's coming out to the U.S. We just got the Frank Martin and Gervonta Davis WBA bout announced 2 weeks ago, or rumored to be announced, but I guess it's official now. So hopefully, as much as I do appreciate Manny Pacquiao, we just talked about Manny Pacquiao. Hopefully we'll get to see some of these younger guys get more headline space, because right now it just seems like it's in kind of the much older veteran camps, kind of taking up a lot of airtime. Well, before I guess we wrap this up, I did want to give a shout out, because our website is a Montreal-based website. I want to give a shout out to Stephen Butler, and I came up with this title, Stephen Butler Rolls Steve Rolls, because Montreal's very own Stephen Butler knocked out Steve Rolls with a powerful right hand in the first round at the Casino de Montreal on the Thursday night broadcast for ESPN+. Adding 4 left hooks, Butler dominated the fight before the referee intervened, ending the bout just in 65 seconds. Bang Bang is back on ESPN Plus is what Butler shouted into the camera. His record now stands at 34-4-1 with 28 knockouts. This impressive win contrasts with Gennady Golovkin's 3-round effort against Rolls in 2019. Butler, who's only 28, has won 2 consecutive fights since his loss to Janibek Alim Kanuli in May, possibly positioning him now for another title shot soon. And now I just read off even my own show notes here, Gennady Golovkin. So let's see what happens here in the next couple of months. But I do know we do have a couple of big fights coming up. I know we just discussed Canelo versus Munguia, Benavides versus Vasek hopefully gets more love than what I think they're currently getting. I don't want to see Pacquiao versus Conor Benn. And we have Gervonta Davis and Frank Martin.
And don't forget,
thank you, Kevin.
And don't forget Bivol versus Beterbiev.
Oh, how could I forget that? I know definitely we're going to have something for that coming up here in June. But thank you so much, Kevin, for joining me. I know it took us a little bit because we're so busy to get together, but I'm glad that we did, so we could talk about some stuff that maybe could get overlooked in the news. Besides, obviously, Francis Ngannou versus Anthony Joshua. But I greatly appreciate your time and your insights.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, fight fans. This is Jeff with thefightcity.com. Again, the official podcast for thefightcity.com. We'll catch you next time.
Hey everyone, it's Jeff here. If you like today's episode, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out all of our other content on thefightcity.com. The website link can be found in our show notes. Till next time.